English Listening Practice, Episode 3: How Ambitious and Lazy People Can Be Successful in Life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to English Listening Practice from Loop the Loop English. I'm Olivia, and today I want to talk about something that most of us wonder. How can somebody who is ambitious and lazy be successful in life? Now, I know it might sound a bit confusing at the beginning, but stick with me. Today, we're going to break this down in a very simple way and share some real ideas, and even a short story that shows how a person who may be a little on the lazy side can still chase big dreams. You see, ambition is that inner spark, the big dreams you have about what you want to achieve, like getting a great job, starting a business, or even just getting better at something you love. But sometimes, even when we have those dreams, we feel lazy. And that's not a bad thing. That laziness could be a sign that you might need to find another approach towards reaching your goals. We have days when we'd rather just relax than work hard, and that's perfectly natural. The best trick is to understand how to use both of our ambition and our moments of laziness to our advantage. Let's start by discussing how varied our energy levels are. So some of us are morning people who wake up with a burst of energy, ready to take on the day. Others find that their creativity and drive come later in the day or even at night. If you are one of those people who feel lazy mornings, don't beat yourself up over it. Instead, try to schedule your most important tasks for the time when you naturally feel more active. It's all about understanding your own rhythm. The first thing I like to do is to set a small, clear goal each day. When your goal is tiny, like writing one sentence in your journal or reading one page of a book, it feels far more achievable. These micro successes add up over time. I remember when I first started trying to improve my own habits. I set a goal to drink a glass of water when I woke up simply. It sounds simple, right? But that small act of discipline helped me build momentum for the rest of my day. And that's one of the key ideas I want to share with you today. Success doesn't always come from huge leaps. It often comes from small, steady steps. Now, let me share with you a short story about a man named Jack. Jack was a very interesting person because, like many of us, he had big dreams but also struggled with a strong sense of laziness. Jack dreamed of starting his own small tech business, something that would let him work on innovative ideas and be his own boss. But here is the twist. Jack loved his leisure time. He loved watching TV, scrolling through social media, and spending hours just relaxing. Many people would call him lazy, but Jack's ambition was undeniable. At the beginning of his journey, Jack tried to force himself to work like everyone else he thought was successful. He set an alarm for 5 a.m., forced himself to work for hours without breaks, and even tried to stick to a strict schedule. But after a few days, he found that he was just exhausted. He would burn out quickly and end up doing nothing at all. Then one day, he decided to take a different approach. Instead of fighting his natural tendency to relax, Jack decided to work with it. He began by observing when he actually felt most energetic. It turned out that Jack was not a morning person at all. He was more awake and creative in the afternoon. So he started to let himself sleep a little longer in the morning, and he reserved his best work for the afternoon hours. Instead of forcing a 5 a.m., he wanted to work for 1 solid hour in the afternoon every day on his business idea. That hour was spent brainstorming new ideas, writing down plans, or just researching things online. First, it was just 1 hour, but soon that hour turned into habit, and he naturally extended it once he grew more comfortable with his routine. What's really interesting in Jack's story is that he also learned the power of planning without overwhelming himself. He started every day writing down a simple to-do list. His list wasn't full of big tasks that intimidated him. It was full of small, clear actions. For example, on one day he might write, research one new technology trend, and another day, call a friend for advice about business ideas. These tasks were small, but they made a big difference, for they kept him moving forward. Even on days when he felt like doing nothing, Jack realized that by breaking his big dream into tiny, manageable pieces, he could overcome his laziness and make real progress. I think Jack's story shows us something very important. Being lazy doesn't mean you're not ambitious. It means you just have to work smarter. Instead of trying to mimic the habits of those that are always on the go, you find out what works best for you. And that's something that we can all learn from. If you feel that you are more inclined to relax and take it easy, that's okay. The key here is to set up a system that lets you use energy when it comes naturally and does not punish yourself for being different. Another interesting idea here is the concept of self-discipline. Self-discipline isn't about being hard on yourself all the time. It's about creating habits that help you get closer to your goals without burning you out. In many people's imagination, the word discipline evokes pictures of strict rules and endless routines. And in fact, that is precisely what it is. Doing the things which matter even when you do not want to do them. For example, you might decide to invest only 10 minutes a day in something that moves you closer toward your goal. It doesn't seem significant, yet the total time adds up with time. Jack did this too. He started with just an hour of focused work, and over time, with growing confidence, his discipline grew, piece by piece. And speaking of confidence, I would like to touch on an essential issue: self-compassion. Too often, we tend to judge ourselves inadequately because we are not as productive as we believe we should be. I used to kick myself with continuous thought pestering about failure because of an unresponsive, lazy day. But over time, I learned that it's okay to have lazy moments. Rest is important for creativity and health. What matters is that you don't let a lazy day become a lazy week. In Jack's case, even when he didn't feel like working, he still did at least one small task. Building a cycle of achievement helped Jack keep his ambition alive. Now, let's switch gears and talk about planning and organization. Some people believe that if you plan every single thing perfectly, you will have no room for mistakes. Yet life is unpredictable, and the key is to have a flexible plan. Think of it as a rough roadmap rather than a rigid schedule. Jack found that if he allowed himself some flexibility in his schedule, he was less likely to feel overwhelmed. This would mean that he planned his day with a few key things but also left room for breaks and unexpected events. This way, if something came up or he simply did not feel like working on one task, he could always switch to another without feeling that he had failed. Also, motivation, which plays a huge role, is a slippery slope because it can change daily. There are days when you wake up full of energy and ready to take on the world. There are days when getting out of bed is just a huge struggle. What most people fail to realize is that you can't rely on motivation all the time to get stuff done, which is why the building of habits is so important. Habits don't depend on your mood, they're just automatic. When you develop a habit of working on your goals every day, even if it's just for a short time, you create a foundation for success in the long term. One method that has helped many people is the 2-minute rule. The idea is simple. If a task will take 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. It sounds oh so insignificant, yet it works wonders. The moment you start by clearing small tasks out of the way, you build momentum, and it gets easier to work on the bigger projects. Imagine you have one big goal, such as learning a new skill or writing a book. Instead of being overwhelming about the entire project, you break it down. You could say, "Today I will spend 2 minutes reading about this topic, then gradually increase my time." Not only does this method cut procrastination, but it also builds confidence over time. Success is not about doing everything right and working nonstop. It's about making progress, even if it feels slow. I want to remind you that it's about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and finding a path that works for you. There's no shame in being a bit lazy if it means taking care of yourself. As a matter of fact, sometimes a lazy day can be the most productive day if it gives you the rest you need to tackle challenges later on. Now let's talk about balance, because that's really where everything comes together. Life isn't just about work. It's about finding a balance between doing what you need to be doing while you take your time for yourself. Jack, the man I mentioned before, learned that balance was the secret to his progress. He didn't try to force himself into a rigid schedule that left him drained. Instead, he learned to listen to his body and mind. On days when he was feeling energetic, he would work more. On days when he felt tired, he allowed himself to rest but always made sure to do at least one small thing that kept him moving forward. Another important point is that success is often a journey of ups and downs. There will always be some days when you are on top of the world and days when nothing appears to work. The trick is to keep going even when progress seems slow. Every small step, every small decision to work toward your goal counts. Think of it as an attempt to climb a mountain. You might not reach the summit in one big leap, but if you take one step at a time, you will get there. Take some time at the end of each day or week to think about what you have accomplished, no matter how small. Ask yourself this question: what did I accomplish today that brought me closer to my goal? Maybe you have written a few lines in your journal, read an informative article, or even just thought over your plans. Such reflection not only solidifies your progress, but also helps you adjust your approach whenever something isn't working. Jack kept a simple journal where he noted down his daily achievements. Over time, he was able to look back and see how far he had come, which was incredibly motivating. Now, I'll talk a bit about the mindset with which one balances ambition against being lazy by nature. Basically, you have to change your thinking regarding your own habits. Rather than looking at laziness as a flaw, try to view it as a signal that you may need a different approach. For example, if you find yourself unmotivated, it could be because whatever you are working on doesn't interest you. In such a case, find a way to make it more engaging for yourself. Sometimes changing only one thing in how you approach a task completely turns the tables. Another important factor to consider is how the people around you influence you. The energy from an interaction with supportive, positive people will go a long way in reinforcing your energy and keeping you liable. It's way easier to follow through with such goals when you're constantly surrounded by others with the same blend of ambition and laid-back attitude. If this is not available physically, then there's the internet. Online communities filled with tips and mutual support abound. Understanding you are not alone, that there is camaraderie in your struggles, makes the journey less lonely. Remember, there's no need to compare your progress to someone else's. Everyone has their path, and what works for one person may not work for another. Jack's story is a good example. He wasn't the fastest or the most energetic person in the room, but he found a way of working with his natural rhythm. Instead of forcing himself into some sort of schedule that didn't fit, he took the time to create one that would. That's the key takeaway. Find what fits your life and don't worry if it looks different from someone else's routine. Success is not about being busy or working all the time. It's really about knowing who you are and setting realistic goals, even small steps toward those goals every day. So, whether you picture yourself as lazy or ambitious, the truth is that both can coexist in successful living. The trick is how to balance such features to work for you. You may think of success like taking a long, tortuous road. There will be stretches when the road is smooth, and there will be those parts when it's bumpy. Some days will feel like you're making great progress, and some days you might feel like you are not moving at all. But just as long as you keep making those little steps, you will eventually get to your destination. It's not about how quick you get there, it's about not stopping. Well, I hope today's podcast has given you some useful ideas and practical tips on how to balance ambition with a tendency to be lazy. Setting small, clear goals, planning your day in a flexible way, or simply allowing yourself the rest you need, there's so much strategies to help you succeed without burning out. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I truly believe that every little effort you make, every tiny step forward, is a building block for a brighter future. Just if one day you feel overwhelmed and unmotivated, remember, even the most ambitious people have days when they need to rest. What counts is that you keep on going, even if it's one small step at a time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. I'd love hearing from you. Leave your comment below on what works for you when you want to balance your ambition and your need for rest. Until next time, take care. And remember, success is a journey, not a race. So just keep moving at your own pace and celebrate every little victory that comes your way. Thank you for watching Loop the Loop English channel. See you next time. Bye.